Basically 12 o'clock, close enough. Looks like everybody got their food, and I'm assuming there's still some left if you haven't, but let's get this going. Hopefully people can multitask, eat while they're... Okay, yes. Tom's going to go round up anybody who's outside, but let's start our UU congregational conversation. We've got a lot of numbers and other things to talk about, so let's move on to the agenda. Okay, so first, I should introduce myself. I am Mark Foote, he, him. I'm the president of the board, and so it's my pleasure to run this meeting today and talk through some things we'll be voting on next month. Remember, we typically do one annual meeting, and that's the summer. The first, I think our official schedule is the first Sunday of June, but this year we decided to push it off 1 week. So we are meeting to vote on things June 8th. So that's the second Sunday in June. And so this meeting is to prep for that meeting. This conversation is to prep for that meeting, including elected offices, a bylaws change, and the budget. So that's first. We are going to talk about a change we'd like you all to consider regarding the Homeland Security grant/loan. We're going to talk about a bylaws change that we'd like to make. Talk about how we're doing financially thus far in our fiscal year that ends June 31st. Let's see. Then we're going to talk about the preliminary budget for next year. Findings from our small group budget discussions, and then you'll get to hear a little bit more about the elections that we're doing for Leadership Development Committee, the board, and special funds. Okay, so without further ado, let's go on to the Homeland Security grant/loan. Debbie, are you available?
It's us.
Oh, perfect. Sarah and Debbie. Now, we have slides, but if you're going to talk about the specific details of the enhancements, we can mute the stream. But if you're just talking about general stuff, we don't need to. So
There's one slide that shows what we're getting. I
think it's fine.
We don't care.
okay, so
We don't care.
we have mics to do Q&A.
I'll be your mic runner.
You want to walk? You want to talk?
No, go ahead. You want me to?
I don't care. I was ready, but you are
jump in.
welcome
I'm just
to.
here.
Okay. Good morning. For those of you who might not know me, I am Debbie Simpkins, and I am a member of VUU's Safety Committee. From the Federal Emergency Management Administration, and it is the nonprofit Homeland Security Grant. We applied for this last spring and were awarded it this fall, and it is $136,806 to improve and enhance security and safety here at VUU. This is the important thing this morning to talk about is that this is a reimbursable grant. And what that means is that we have to purchase the equipment up front with funds from VUU. And we arranged last September to make sure that we could loan ourselves that money out of special funds to buy the equipment, and then we submit to the state, to the Arizona Department of Homeland Security for reimbursement, and they give us back the money that we spent. Just if anyone, next slide, please. This is what was included on our grant. We have money to buy radios, money to put impact-resistant film on every window across our whole campus, and that would prevent someone from being able to shatter the glass to break in, or it would keep the glass from shattering if there was an explosion or any kind of a violent event. We have money to buy bollards to put on the perimeter of the patio. We have money to replace the fencing on the west side around the office and the religious education buildings and the garden and the memorial garden. And we got money for cameras video cameras on that side of the campus. We got money to upgrade our security system and put one in the office building. And we got money for keypads so that we will have keypad access rather than the potpourri of who knows who has a key to what, which we are currently living under. So, next slide. So what's happening here is that we heard that we got this award last fall, and we jumped through all their hoops and submitted all their paperwork, and then near the end of January, we were told, okay, you can go ahead and spend your grant. So the process is, for everything we were awarded, we have to get 3 quotes from vendors, and then we take the lowest quote and we buy the equipment. So our committee was in the process of getting those quotes when, well, number one, we had a new administration in Washington, and we received notice from the state, from the Arizona Department of Homeland Security, that they were changing the reimbursement process at the federal level. So the normal process is we spend our money, we send our documentation that we had 3 quotes and we bought what they said we could to the state, and they give us our money. And all of a sudden it was going to be, oh no, every reimbursement request was going to be reviewed in Washington, and they would decide if you got your money or not. And in my heart, I don't know, some of us panic less rapidly than others, but to me, I was like, oh my God, when all they have to do is look at VUU and wow, we have a woke agenda, and we're gonna be spending this money and they're never gonna pay us back. So we met as a committee and we decided, well, probably the logical way to proceed is let's test this. We'll buy something that doesn't cost a whole lot of money and see what happens. So we purchased the radios on our grant. We got a really good price and spent right around $700 instead of the $1,700 we were allowed. And we sent in that request for a reimbursement. Well, then the winds in Washington blew in the opposite direction, and we got a notice saying, take hope. The regular reimbursement process has been restored. Okay, I don't know if I believe them or not. Actually, I really don't believe them. And so we talked about what do we do now? And the reason I'm standing up here is that, first of all, I want to say that I want to emphasize to everybody here that we need this equipment. We don't want this equipment. We need, with a capital N. I can recite scary statistics all morning long, but everyone sitting here knows that since the election and since the changes that are happening, our congregation is much more visible to the community. And there are a lot of people who don't like us, and a lot of them are violent. And we want our members and the Montessori school and our groups that use our facility like Nefesh Soul, and most importantly in my heart, our staff who are here by themselves much of the week, to be safe on our campus. And we need this equipment in order to do that. So we will likely be coming to the congregation at the annual meeting, asking to have that special funds loan, the permission to spend the money out of special funds and then pay it back for reimbursement, to be converted to a grant, so that if we don't get reimbursed, we can still obtain this equipment. And we have prioritized the equipment that will provide security for the office building and provide cameras so we can see the whole campus. And we will go down the list. But I personally will stand here telling you, after being part of the safety committee for several years now and trying to do something about our vulnerability, getting the grant, having walked this campus with members of the Arizona Counterterrorism Center and the Chandler Police Department, and had things pointed out to me that are horrifying about what could happen if one of the currently 37 hate groups operating in our community decides to get nasty with us. We need this stuff, and we need these things, and we are going to go ahead. We're going to spend that money. We are going to pray, say incantations, I don't know what, that we get reimbursed. But we are also going to ask the congregation to authorize special funds to pay this if we don't get reimbursed. Sarah, did you?
I'll bring this out to people who have questions. We do also have some plans to get some training, which is a lot less expensive than the stuff, and we're working that out right now. Carl. When you get the mic, if I don't say your name, say your name.
Carl Anderson, he, him, and I'm chair of special funds. Please don't read anything into this, but it's incorrect in that special funds has to approve the money because it's, we approved a loan, we did not approve a grant. And so we need to do that. So like I said, please don't read anything into this. We have a meeting coming up and I'll make sure it's on the agenda, but we don't make the assumption that just because the congregation votes that it happens. That's all. It's just our process.
Other questions, comments? All right. It seems like everyone thinks that's pretty clear. Oh.
Just by way of process for from special funds point of view and from our policy, things of this size need to be approved by a special funds committee. We're elected by the board, they're elected, and by the congregation. So it takes 3 approvals to get something of this size approved. And the fact that it's a grant loan, well, do we trust Washington to pay us back? Yes, we do. We trust them this time to pay us back.
If you're not the praying kind, this is the kind of thing to pray for. Did I miss anybody else? Okay. Back to you, Mark.
All right, thank you. Next slide. So the board is recommending a bylaws amendment to the congregation. So every year, the VUU, our national organization, has General Assembly. During General Assembly, we do lots of important things like vote on elected officials like the president of the UUA. They also vote on bylaw changes at the UUA level. Many of us would remember the Article 2 discussions. It was kind of a big deal. And what else? Oh, and then also statements of conscience like the UUA is opposed to this movement in the world or whatever else it is. So anyway, every year we send delegates to represent VUU and vote on our behalf, representative democracy. And typically we have the problem where we're trying to get enough delegates, and sometimes there's a hot button issue like Article 2 where we have more than enough volunteers. So we realized that we didn't have policy in our VUU bylaws that covered this to our liking. So from now on, we would like our Denominational Affairs Committee to identify, recruit, recommend delegates. In the case that we have more than enough, when we have the right number, then the board will just appoint them, because why go through a big hassle? But in the event that we have too many, which is a great problem to have, we will have a congregational meeting to vote on who will represent the congregation. And that's what this change affects. So board already updated their policy to that effect, but we need a bylaws change to also make this kosher. Ryan, can we do the next slide? So this is the actual language that we're proposing. The policy committee and the board recommended this for the congregation to review. The purple language is new. The black stuff is what was already there. So I'll read it in its entirety, but this is under section 5.2, special meetings. In the event there are more nominees to serve as General Assembly delegates than there are delegate positions available to VUU, the Board of Trustees shall call a special meeting so that the membership can elect the delegates for that GA in accordance with this section. In the event the number of nominees are less than or equal to delegate positions available to VUU, the Board of Trustees shall appoint all the nominees as VUU delegates to GA. So basically, if we have perfectly good volunteers, they'll be delegates and we don't have to hassle with the meeting. If there's controversy, then we'll vote on it. I guess I'll take questions, if any, or we can move on to the next section. All right.
Over here.
Okay, first, second, third.
Deanne, she, her. Can you just remind us what the qualifications are to be a delegate?
Oh, shoot. I know you have to be an official member. Is anybody from the Denominational Affairs Committee here that remembers that off the top of their head? I might have to get back to you, but I know you have to be basically a member in good. David?
Oh, does he know?
Well, if you're a member for a year, that's the only official qualification, although we're looking for folks that can show up in person or show up to the whole GA and will participate in all the sessions. And we're also interested in folks who will be willing to represent VUU in any controversial issue objectively. So their priority in the policy is to give preference to folks who will attend the whole GA and not just the business sessions.
Hi, Janet Nash, she, her. I just have a question. Say we have the right number of nominees and it's equal to the delegate positions available to VUU, and there's a bunch of controversy and like something like Article 2 changes, and so therefore the congregation becomes divided on who they want to represent them. Would we have a vote in that case too?
Not in the case where we have the same number of delegates as there are positions. We would not have a vote. Of course, if there was controversy, I would hope there would be more people willing to represent the congregation so that the congregation could have a voice in what proportion is representing us. If we take Article 2 as any indication of how we would handle it, we had, I think we had 3 or 4 extra volunteers than we had spots. And so we took a survey of the congregation, which looked a lot like a vote. And we assigned those delegates proportionally, which allowed us to represent proportionally VUU's attitude towards Article 2 during that GA. That was 2 years ago, I think.
I just want to add, thanks, Rebecca and Ann. They said if we don't have enough and there's so much divisiveness, we would just get more volunteers to drive a vote.
Yes, exactly. That would be optimal.
So the concern I see with that I'm wondering if you all discussed and considered, is sometimes the people who are able to go and be delegates and do that represent a minority of the whole congregation, and sometimes a majority of the congregation wants one thing, but the people who have the ability to go travel and vote are not representative. Did you discuss that?
Yes. So while we encourage and would prefer people to be able to show up in person, we know that that's not an option for lots of us. There is no requirement of that, and really it comes down to, if we don't have people willing to even attend the online-only free business version, then we're going to take the people that are volunteering. So finances shouldn't be a limitation, and the commitment to do the whole thing isn't a requirement. It's just a preference and encouragement for more participation. We want our delegates to participate, but it's I'll take any delegate over not enough delegates.
I would like to know if there could be a process where the congregation votes on controversial issues and the delegates are be instructed to follow the congregation vote.
So yeah, thank you. We're hoping that the attitudes, our intention is to follow our typical election process to select delegates. And part of that will be asking them to answer and address the key issues at play. So GA, let's say everybody's excited about a rewrite to Article 3, and some people are totally for it and some people are totally against it. We'll ask the delegates to say something about their position, and by voting for that delegate, you're also voting for that position. What we wanted to avoid was requiring an individual to vote for a specific thing on behalf of the congregation, partly because GA is somewhat fluid. They do amendments, and maybe there is an amendment that ruins the whole point that you were opposed to, or how do you feel about specific elements as these ideas are put forward? We want to trust our delegates to use their judgment and not require them to obey some narrow vote that we had in the congregation. So that was the plan.
I understand that, having probably gone to more general assemblies than anybody in this congregation over the years. But I'm thinking, even if there's no election required because we have just the right number of delegates, should they not have a sense of how this congregation feels about certain issues? And maybe not be instructed to vote that special way if things change, as like you say, I know they do, but to be aware of how the congregation feels before they go.
Yes, and I completely agree that we want our delegates to represent us. So I think that is best a duty for the Denominational Affairs Committee to help us with. Right, their job is to raise awareness of what what the UUA is voting on, to recruit delegates, and part of their mission is to facilitate meetings to make us aware of these things. And if part of those meetings are having a vote or a poll to get a sense of how we're feeling about the topics at hand, I think that's exactly what we want our Denominational Affairs Committee to be doing. And by the way, there are extra spots on that committee. So if you are interested in what's happening at the UUA level and you want VUU to be more involved, we should get you connected with that committee because they could use more help. But yes, I hope we will take time to educate the congregation on any topic that's of interest. Any other questions? Tom at the front.
Okay, my name is B, and I'm under the impression, like you said, that you need to be a member for at least a year in order to be part of the leadership. Is there any other types of leadership type things that you don't need to be a member for a year in order to participate in? Finance?
Do you like money? Finance is looking for extra. So actually, basically every job, every position that you could serve in this congregation, other than the 3 elected committees and the delegate, are open to anybody who's not a member. We thrive on friends. We're very thankful for all of you friends, especially the friends that stick around for congregational conversations. Yeah, thank you. Other than the Board of Trustees, the Special Funds Committee, and Leadership Development Committee, and delegates, I think that's everything. Those are the only ones that are reserved for members only. Yeah, so thank you.
It sounded like B's question was, do they all require membership for a year? And that's important.
Which, David, do you remember if delegates need to be member for a year? I guess they just need to be members at all. Yeah. The other ones do need to be for a year, but I guess delegates, it's just be a member. My bad.
And to vote at the annual meeting, you need to be a member for 30 days. So that's the only other restriction I know of.
Okay, I think we're ready for our next slide then. Financial update. With that, I will hand the time over to David Shea.
So I thought I would do some comparisons here, last year to this year. The first slide here compares the first 3 quarters of what we've been doing to budget. So income, thanks to a March surge in pledges and thanks to good fundraisers and some occasional rent, is pretty close to budget. And expenses are a little below budget. So what does this mean for the end of the year? Well, I know cash flow in April was quite a bit lower, so those numbers are going to change. The predicted end of year is okay, assuming pledges come in May and June at a nice clip. If they don't, then we'll be looking at a deficit for end of year. Estimates range anywhere from 9,000 positive to about the equivalent or more negative. So I don't know where it's going to land, and that's why there isn't a number there. All right, next slide. So this comparison is this year end-of-year estimate versus last year end-of-year actuals. So these are not budgeted numbers. These are actual numbers as close as we can tell. So pledges are probably going to come in below budget. Unnamed people are giving cash. That's good. Cash. I like cash. One-time income is dropped year over year. Let me remember why that was. One time, oh yes, that's because we're getting less from special funds. So, and we're getting nothing next year from the recovery accounts. So those accounts are going away. So they were as high at one point as 120, 130,000. 2024 it was 75,000. This year it's a little under 60,000. Next year it'll be lower still, probably around 20 or 30,000. Rental income is good because we raise rent on our renters every year to some extent, and occasional rentals have been a little, at least close to budget. Miscellaneous, that's due to the auction. That's why there's a surplus there. But total income year over year dropped 10 grand. And there's an error on the last slide, but it's $10,000 drop. Next slide, please. So this is the same comparison. This year's end-of-year estimates based on the first 3 quarters and end-of-year actuals as of last year. I can see this a little bit better. So we have, you can see here the results of cuts that we put in for this fiscal year. Cuts to payroll expenses. Property dropped. That was just a gift, because last year we had to pay for all those air conditioners, and this year we haven't had a major expense. So that's good luck. UUA dues we cut that budget. I think it's only $1,000 for next year, and the rest of these are basically the results of year-over-year cuts. So we cut about $25,000 in spending. And next slide, please. So operating year only dropped 10K. I picked the wrong number. And it's going to drop another 40K for next year, as near as we can tell, unless there is a last-minute surge in pledging, which I would very much encourage folks to take a look at what we're doing and what we're cutting and say, no, we don't want to do that. And the way we say no is by with money, with dollars. So that's what we have as a review of where we are for the first 3 quarters. Any questions?
David, I have slides that continue to talk. Maybe we'll hold questions.
Okay. So Mark is suggesting we hold questions since his slides may answer some of those questions that are coming up. But this is to prep for next year's budget as it stands now.
Thank you, David. And stick around. I'm sure we'll need you to answer some questions in a minute. Next slide, please. Okay, let's talk about the preliminary budget. First, I'll talk about the current year, and if you're not a spreadsheet person, I have pie graphs. People at work make fun of me because I think pie charts are great. They give you a real sense of like parts of a whole. And so we'll do current year and then next year, and we'll take questions after you see the proposed budget so that there's no suspense. All right, next slide. So pledges, 72, that is basically any donation that we can tie a name to. In the next slide, we'll divide it out a little bit, but pledges represent 72%. Adobe School, they rent. We're really grateful for our renters because that's the second largest source. And as you can see, the one-time income, that green wedge, 7%. Fund is definitely notable, and then at 3%, and then all the other sources. Next slide. Okay, so for this current year that we're in, this is where our money went. We are, our staff, individual spots take up those wedges. Our senior minister is our top priority, and we're thankful for her. The property management is cleaning, that's landscaping, that's everything related to keeping this property up and running. Director of Faith Formation, Office Administrator, Director of Music Ministries, then Mortgage. So that's the principal, and interest is 7%. We've talked about possibly moving toward, trying to have a campaign to pay it off at some point. That's that wedge. It's only 7%, but that it is what it is. So that's where we currently are on spending this year. Next slide. Okay, so projected income. This pie chart, that big red wedge that says 8% is the difference between last year and this year. That's the amount that we had to figure out. So it is a significant chunk. That big blue wedge, 54%, is pledges where people submitted a pledge. Thank you for all of you who did that. Giving without a pledge, I love you people. Thank you for giving, even if you didn't pledge. So that's that estimate of essentially 80,000. That's 12. That's why that wedge of pledging was like bigger on the last slide than this slide. We divided it out. This is information we shared in the small groups. Clearly, we're not going to spend the same amount of time, but I wanted you to get a quick sense for what's going on. So how did we fix the 8%? So let's go to the next slide. So unfortunately, the numbers have to even out. What we bring in has to match what we're paying out, or else we can't make payroll. We can't keep the water on. We don't want to run out of money. So some significant changes. David alluded to this. PPP grants, Capital Recovery Fund, and Endowment Emergency Grant are no longer available. So and that's a change. That represented around $60,000. Unfortunately, we made the decision, at least for right now, to make it add up, that we are reducing the Director of Music Ministries position from 3/4 time to 1/4 time. And in fact, that's being fully funded out of special funds this coming year. I realize that this is kicking the can down the road one more year, but it's also giving us an opportunity to experiment with less paid staff to run our music program. I understand we have extended an offer to a quarter-time position, and so I'm really excited for us to move forward with that position, but that's where we're at right now. And then Director of Faith Formation, we have decided to reduce that position from full-time to half-time, which saves us $34,000. And just to answer the question before you ask, our current interim is leaving regardless of whether or not it was a full-time position. That had nothing to do with, but we will be looking for a new interim for this coming year before we find a permanent position. So that's what this draft includes. This is your opportunity to see where we're at, and then extra pledges could come in between now and then, and now and a month from now, and so that would change things. But we did need to create a realistic budget, and this is where we came up with. So could we do the next slide? Okay, so here's the proposed budget for next year that we will ask you to approve at our next meeting. The senior minister remains unchanged. Property maintenance takes up a little bit bigger of a wedge because we cut other things. All the changes are reflected there. I understand that this is a lot of numbers to fit on one slide and review so quickly. We will have a link available to you all to see the exact numbers at your leisure at home. I believe that's going to be in the happenings this next week. I know the Finance Committee is actively preparing that link to send out. But I think, Ryan, that's my last slide, right, for the budget? I think it is. Okay, so this is a good time to do questions now that you've seen what's going on. Debbie has a question.
Does the board have a list of priorities for what cuts will be restored if there's more money coming in?
If more money came in, we would look at the faith formation. I can only speak from my perspective because we didn't officially agree on the first thing to restore, but that was the last thing we cut. And so that would be the next thing that we look to restore, I believe. But that would require an extra approximately $34,000 in pledges.
Jim, then Linda. Jim first.
Good morning. I'm Jim Horton, and I'm on the Finance Committee. The bulk of the money that goes into our budget every year comes from pledges and from our rentals. Since COVID in 2020, for the last several years, we've been unable to balance our budget with those funds. We've had to resort to other sources. We've had the good fortune of getting a special grant for the United States government of $150,000, which carried us over for a couple of years. We've taken money from the capital fund drive to help balance the budget in another year, another couple of years, something that we shouldn't be doing, but we wanted to keep the doors open here. And last year we took $27,000 from special funds. Again, something that we're not supposed to be doing, but we found creative ways around the bylaws in order to keep the doors open here. But and we don't see any change in what's going on, but there's a way out of this, and it has to do with special funds. That was created a number of years ago and started out somewhere near $100,000 and now is over $850,000. There's a provision in the bylaws of special funds that allows them to pay off the mortgage entirely. That would be $50,000 that we are going to be paying this year in order to balance the budget. And we could take $50,000 from special funds and pay off the mortgage and have that money. Excuse me. It would cost about $500,000 to pay off the mortgage. And that will require the approval of special funds. It will require approval of the board. It'll require approval of the congregation. And you're going to be asked to vote on the budget in June. If you think that this is a good way to get to a sustainable budget, talk to somebody on the board or talk to somebody on special funds and make your voice heard. Thank you.
I'm Linda Stenholm. I'm he, they. And Jim, oh, you hear me? I'm he, they. I'm Linda Stenholm. Jim, you kind of covered my question. How do we make suggestions or speak to somebody who can be aware of our concerns? My main concern is a little one. Environmental justice has a pretty good number of money for funding. Social justice has none, and I'm wondering who even is environmental justice. I used to be the chair of that committee until not too long ago. We did not ask for money as far as I know, so I'm very confused about that.
So I believe the large majority of the environmental justice is going towards the garden, like watering and some things. One thing to note is if, for example, we didn't change the committee funding, but several committees didn't actually spend their money, and that's why we ended up with expenses lower. And so if you don't spend your money, for example, the capital campaign or Stewardship had $1,000 to send mailers. They didn't send it. They didn't use that money, and so fortunately that helped us end up with a surplus instead of a negative carry forward into this coming year. So basically, we're just fortunate when committees and organizations don't spend the money that was allocated to them. It's not like it disappears. It just rolls into the next year. Does somebody have a better answer than that? Okay, next question.
I wanted to clarify, and I want to make sure I'm right. David, you gave me this information yesterday. It's $51,000 per year to pay off the year's amount for the mortgage. David and I went around on something because on one of my slides there's an error on a number.
I don't really know if this should be me to say that. I am deeply concerned about the idea of cutting the faith formation director to half-time. Faith formation is kind of in a very big transition point, and so to go to half-time seems, I don't know. And then faith formation drives membership, and I think new membership in a lot of ways, so it almost feels like we're cutting off our nose to spite our faces in some ways. I come here for my daughter. And so if that program suffers, I mean, I am a Unitarian, I've been my whole life. I am a giving member, but like, if that program suffers or continues to dwindle, like I think she's one of like 3 kids across the way right now, like that makes me really kind of question things.
Thank you. I will note that we did not change funding for all other staff category, which includes all of the teachers on Sunday. And partly the rationale is bang for buck, in that we have a lot of face time with paid teachers able to run the program. So the question is, how can we continue to maintain a program and not have the classes suffer, but we still need these numbers to add up. And so this was determined to be the best way to preserve the program that we're currently offering youth. And obviously it wasn't only faith formation that lost their staff. Music also had to take a cut too. And we do all these decisions, unfortunately, with a heavy heart.
Yeah, the answer is more pledges. So we've been putting this off for 6 years, right? We've been putting this off for 6 years, over $300,000 in one-time money, and that money's running out. So we can't kick the can down the road as far as we might want to. So either we do something with more pledges, or we do something what Jim said, free up $50,000 by paying off a $500,000 mortgage out of special funds. We do something else. And in lieu of anything else, we have to cut our budget, and that means reductions in staff. That's just the way it is. You know, there's no, this is not a happy thing to do, but it's a necessary thing to do. So how can you do less damage? Yeah, so that's my take on where we're at.
I'm Linda Horton, and I am fairly experienced in the past as a religious education director. To reassure parents, like we just heard from, cutting back the hours of a faith formation director does not mean that you cut the program back. It may mean and can mean a difference in the way you write the job description, such that the administration part of it makes more use and coordinates the efforts of volunteers. And the model for that, if you really want one, is what's going on right this minute with the music program. So we will have a very part-time music employee who will then coordinate the efforts of all the volunteers that you have seen up here recently as musicians. You can do the same thing with faith formation and keep a very, very good program if you have the right kind of volunteer administration.
My name is Joanne Smith, and my pronouns are she, her, and I've been a member here since 1970. And I was a very dear friend with Charlotte Ward, who many of you know was a very strong contributor to the capital campaign, and then recently we got another windfall from a sale of a property that she had owned, and she deeded it to her son. And her son passed away. It came to the VUU. She loved this congregation very deeply. She loved this facility, but she was always worried about the mortgage, that the mortgage would tie us, be an albatross around our necks. And so I would propose that I think I'm not sure, I say in my bio of my involvement here, 2 things that I've never done: sing in the choir and be the treasurer. And there are very good reasons for that. But if I remember correctly, the mortgage payment this year is about 8%, and that money that we need to raise is about 8%. And maybe we could do something to take money out of special funds for just this year's mortgage, not pay down the whole thing, but take that off of our balance sheet this year so we wouldn't have to make some of these other cuts that really might affect our program. Thank you.
My question is, can we do, this is late in the year, but what can we do about stewardship? I'd love to see trending information, where our pledges coming from. Do we have any information, breakdown of where they're coming from, where they're declining or where they're increasing, what's happening with our income? I'd love to see that if that's possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
So a group of us have put together a proposal to special funds actually to work with, thank you for teeing that up, Paul, to work with a consultant this next year to get better at our stewardship work and to be able to produce the kinds of things you just asked for, which really require a bigger team and some different structures in place. We've known about for the last year a group called Stewardship for Us that works with UU congregations to help them not just do a pledge campaign, right? Stewardship, it's about all the ways that we bring income in. It's about how we use our resources like our building to make money and how we do fundraisers and other things. So it's a broader based picture than just pledge. So the idea would be that we would get some coaching this next year from Stewardship for Us to do a better job at creating both the pledge campaign and the other ways that we do stewardship. We've submitted that request to them. It's been, the board voted to support it. The Committee on Shared Ministry, which meets with me, voted to support it. And another group. And the group of us that's been meeting to do sort of a high-level conversation about sustainability, which is me, Mark, Deanne, Carl, and Joel, who did our stewardship campaign. And this is not to say that anything we've done has been, it just means that we have some room to grow and learn. There's some things that we did before the pandemic that we were good at, and then the pandemic happened and we maybe didn't do as well at those things because we hadn't done them in a while, but also the world has changed and how stewardship works has changed, how we make use of our resources and what's even available to us has changed. So we're gonna hope that it's not a ton of money, it's about $10,000 that would help us get some coaching this year and some deep level support on how to move forward in that area. Is that? So what we don't have today for you, we hope that in a year we'll have for you because we will have done some deeper work in this area. Does that make sense? Okay.
Hi, Deanne again. So I'm the chair of the finance team, and I have been involved in finance either on the board or on the finance team, and sometimes both for the last 8 years. We have been borrowing money every year and kicking the can down the road, and we have not had a sustainable budget for at least the year before COVID to now. We created a sustainable budget committee, and we met many times and worked with our 4 committees, and we are not presenting a sustainable budget at all. We're kicking the can further down the road, and I'm very concerned about that. We're doing that while we have $850,000 in the bank, and I think there are, we should investigate paying off the mortgage to create a more sustainable budget. I have no confidence that we will pass a sustainable, current budget where we only spend the money we're getting, but I would very much like us to get there. And I think that paying off the mortgage is the quickest way to help us get closer, but I also am concerned that we continue to spend special funds money in ways that it was not intended. We're paying operational expenses with special funds money, which goes against their rules. And so we're kind of getting further from becoming sustainable. I just want to also point out, I like to tell people, when you look at these numbers up here, don't think that our office administrator makes $97,000. He doesn't. That is the all-in cost of those people. So it's not their salaries, and sometimes I know people wonder.
Hello, everybody. I would just like us to remember where we came from. That little pizza parlor. And it wasn't all that long ago. And how we moved from Warner Road, how we put our pennies together and made that happen. And how many times we've been in a situation where we've said, how are we going to make this happen? I mean, our budget is out of whack, we're not getting enough money, people are in, people are out. How are we going to do this? Well, somehow or another, in the process of thinking how we're going to do this, we do it. We absolutely do it, because we are VUU, and we're unique. Each one of us brings something to this adventure, because I consider this to be an adventure. We are setting the path for people who want to do something but don't know how to do it, and sometimes we don't know how to do it either, but we figure it out because we're a group of people who are committed to making this a better place to live in, to raise our children in, and to be in. So yes, we're having problems now. We're trying to figure out how to do this and whatever, but I have no notion that we're not going to do it, because in the 25 plus years that I've been here, I've seen us do it, and we'll do it again.
Hi, everybody. My name's Eileen Garces, and with respect to the many needs being requested to be included in the budget, I am advocating for VIP, Valley Interfaith Project, to be reestablished as a line item of 1% of our VUU budget. I attended the VIP Delegates Assembly and Action to Protect Medicaid that was held on April 23rd at Paradise Valley United Methodist Church, along with 22 VUU members. Working with other religious organizations amplifies our voice and turns our commitment to social justice into actions with positive impact and legislative results. The VIP core team at VUU raised $332 and change deposited into the VUU operating fund, with over 50 plus attendees from the Civic Academy Affordable Housing Film Night presentation. We will be hosting a VUU upcoming Civic Academy and call to action on Medicaid on May 18th. VIP facilitates VUU having an impact in the community and the wider world. I'm urging the Finance Board to fund VIP as a line item budget, and thank you. I appreciate you all.
David, I think you have a response to that.
So FYI, VIP is in there at 0.75%. We did put some raises, increases in this budget, oddly enough. More money for utilities, more money for tech booth, more money for hospitality coffee, a small raise for the administrator. So there were some things, when we increased the budget, we did that because this is money we're going to spend. We have to spend it. For example, merchant fees. Merchant fees are more in this budget because more and more people are paying electronically, so we have to budget for that. And one of those things we put in was a 0.75%, not 1%, for VIP. So that's it's about $4,000, about $4. Probably under social justice.
Yeah.
So we did what VIP always does, was we got really organized, and so do we still want to do this? Oh, we have a group from VIP that we're going to talk about all the things that VIP has accomplished. So, okay. Yeah, we didn't know that. Okay, thank you.
That's what's coming to happenings. And say that, and there's a link to the whole budget so people can look it up. Is that what you said? Yeah, right here. Unfortunately, I don't have the link to the budget prepared, but it is, I know that Jim was quickly, yeah, it will be in this coming happenings, a link to the detailed budget, yes.
Hi, my name is Rick Henricks. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm on special funds now, but after 9 years, I'm rotating off at the end of June, so I'm hoping that we get some interest into replacing me on the committee. But I'm here not to talk about how special funds has been floating the budget over the last few years. It's sort of against our charter to be able to provide operating expenses. But I think what the solution is for all of us to reevaluate what we give. Several years ago, when Ann Schneider was involved with the stewardship campaign, she provided what I thought was a really good thing to go by, some numbers to go by. She said, think about what your gross income is on your taxes, your gross income, not your net, your gross income, and then multiply that by 2.5%. 2.5%, not 1% or 0.5%, by 2.5%. As a starting point. And I didn't know that, and Debbie and I were looking at what we were giving, and we were giving quite a bit less. We were pledging quite a bit less than 2.5%. Ann's numbers were, let's see if we can start at 2.5%, and if you're already giving 2.5%, then think of working your way over the next few years, working your way up to 5%. Now, you know that a lot of other religions have a tithing of 10%. So we are definitely not other religions, right? We're not expecting 10%, but there are some people who can give 10% and do give 10%. And what Ann was saying is just start at 2.5%, because I guess if many of you look at what you're giving now, you're probably giving 1%. And look to see where your giving is. Try to make it 2.5%. And I bet you if you all upped your pledge to work, you don't have to do it in 1 year, but if you can up your pledge working toward 2.5%, and then if you're already at 2.5%, working your way toward 5%. If we all gave 5%, we'd have a surplus. There's a lot of 1%ers because you just don't know what you're supposed to give, but look to see what your gross income is. Try to make it 2.5% for your pledge, and I bet you all of these problems are going to go away, and rather quickly.
So I'm sorry, who was next?
Tom, behind you. Oh.
Yeah, so I just want, since I knew this would come up, right? So I just want to give some clarity. Special funds, our basic premise is that people give money, we keep that money, and then we pay out grants from the gains and interest and all that. So the way that looks is that, so as of the beginning of April, we've received a total of $561,000 in base money that's been donated. And that means the rest of that, which is approximately, because we know the markets are changing, about $245,000 in gains. And our charter says that we can give up to 100% of that out. That has to be a vote of the congregation. The other part of that is the $561,000. That we are limited to giving half. We can distribute that, but it's not our first choice. We would go to the gains first. But if we did, we are limited to distributing half of that, which gets you to around that $500,000 that if we paid the mortgage off. This is not a new idea to us. We've been talking about it. And so I think in the context of both distribution per donor wishes, that's really important with an endowment fund. Would the people who donated be comfortable with doing this? But also, is it the best use of the money? Because there's a trade-off. Whenever you do one thing, you lose another. And what that trade-off is that the fund has been around for about 20 years now, did start with a $100,000 donation, and has grown to that $561,000. On top of the gains that are currently in there, year to date, we've also distributed $248,000 back to the congregation for various projects and things like that. So it's not like that money's just been sitting there doing nothing. And so what we would have to be comfortable with is the fact that we'd probably lose the majority of that, as we're limited to giving away 4% a year. And that means if you're on any of the committees that have gotten grants from us, then that is going to be, that's going to impact you. So we do give that up. And I just wanted to put some numbers to it so you could have a better idea about kind of what would be available. One of the other ideas that we've been floating out there is to do some kind of matching, where we would match, you know, dollar for dollar, or even 2 to 1 for any dollars that were donated. And the whole idea around that is that if we just pay off the mortgage and we erase $50,000 from our budget line, it doesn't have as much impact as if we involve the members in that effort to pay that mortgage off. And so I tend to like that idea of matching more because it involves more people in the congregation, not just, you know, the people in this room or just a committee that says, okay, here, let's pay this off. So there are many ways to get there. Our problem is really a problem, but it's a good problem to have because we have money and we can fix these things, and we're not in danger of going out of business or anything like that. So we have a little bit of leeway to be thoughtful about it and to think about what's going to be the best impact that we can have. And I think that our tendency is to just want to get rid of the problem. But, and sometimes just getting rid of the problem is not the best way to get rid of the problem. As Deanna alluded to, we need to have processes and things in place where we don't run into this situation again, and that we also have a recovery plan. And so I'm hoping the Sustainability Committee can continue on in some form to get those processes put in place. But that's just an overview, as all these numbers are being brought up, that this is definitely a possibility. So let's take, as much as you can, take the angst off the table and think about, okay, what's going to be the best way to use these dollars that have been donated to us to help us in times of need.
I know she was.
My name's Donna Long. I'm a new member here, but I've been a UUer for a lifetime. And I have an opinion and a question. I think faith formation is the taproot of our UU faith. And if we don't take care of the root, we aren't going to have the future. The tree grows, we trim the root, and we slow the growth. I think we should put our top priority on faith formation. Yes, we can volunteer. I've volunteered in faith formation for years. But you want to get the best person you can get, and you don't get that by offering them a low salary or part-time work. You want the best, and you want somebody who can enroll all of us to help them would be best. But we need somebody, we need not to hold back on that. And then my question is, what's our interest rate on the mortgage? And why is it good to pay interest that just goes to a bank? Somebody needs to explain that to me. 7? That's a lot of money. I guess I don't understand why we can't use that fund, the funds that we have, and set a goal to replenish it each year, a certain percent, to build it back up if we're afraid we don't have enough in reserve. That's my question. Why can't we do that?
Well, the answer is actually we can do that, and there's a big difference. There is some difference between looking at money financially and what's best that way, and also in a and I don't mean this in a bad way, but an emotional way, where a lot of this emotion around paying off the mortgage may not make necessarily the most financial sense to do, even with a 7% rate. Because from a financial perspective, once we pay that mortgage off, those dollars are only available to us in an emergency if we actually take a loan out that may at that time be at a higher rate. So the idea, I think, is not to, it doesn't have to be one way or the other. It can be a combination where we're paying down the mortgage more aggressively, but also saving at the same time and preserving money, which gets a little more complicated. But and then the other side is that the investments that we made, the endowment is not necessarily the emergency fund, but what it is it's a backup. It's almost should be looked at as like a last resort, but it's available, and that's why we're having this discussion right now. A lot of it is going to be what's going to make the most sense to do, not necessarily with a balance between the emotion and the dollars and cents of it or the math of it, because the emotion part is really important too. If it means that people are leaving, or we're losing members, or people are unhappy, or things like that. So not to minimize that either. But that's why we can do that, and that's why we're having this discussion.
My name is Evan. Question, we're talking about, did you say a 6 or 7% mortgage rate? 7. do we earn more or less than that? About the same, so they're about a wash. Okay. Carl's shaking his head. Yeah, they're about a wash. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I need to keep track of who's and then went up first. I'm sorry.
Irene's had her hand up for a while.
Okay. I see 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to start behind you. You'll read next.
My name's Noelle. My pronouns are she, her. Carl, if I understood you correctly, I think you were saying we have the option of paying down what I see as a for sure 7% interest on the mortgage versus a possible future percentage on an emergency situation that may or may not happen and that we would only tap into, I think, if all the other emergency money was spent first. So I'm trying to understand your scenario, but we definitely have 7% interest we're paying. We may or may not have to do that emergency situation and accrue another percentage.
So what I would say is, it's not the best way to think of, the endowment fund is not meant to be an emergency fund. An emergency fund is meant to be part of your operating income where you have money set aside for an emergency. Just think of it as in your personal life, you may have a savings account where you put money away just in case you need it, but then you also have your retirement accounts that you're saving for the future for then. And the endowment fund is more like that than it is meant to be an emergency fund. The other thing to think about is that the question is it worth paying 7% to know that you will have $500,000 in reserve if something happens that you need a large amount of money for? It's almost like insurance, think of it that way, where you're paying for it. You hope you don't die, but if you die, you feel better because you know that you've got that money there. So it's really a personal decision about, well, I'm willing to pay 7% because and I'll pay this other thing down more slowly because I feel more comfortable having that $500,000. Right. So does that help?
Hi, my name's Irene Vitullo. I know I've spoken before about the solar desires and wishes and plans. We've spoken before and spent a lot of time, some of us, on proposing a solar solution for our energy production here at VUU. Now, we're not doing that right now because of the budget, and also there are some other things that we want to look into. We do not have a plan for, but people who are really keen on using solar say there's better proposals in going through SRP, because SRP is not a very progressive institution. Whatever we give back to them that we don't use, they give us a penny for, and we pay more than 4 or 5 cents for what we get from them. So currently, don't give up on us. Let's not give up on using the energy from the sun to fund our, or to give us all that we need here. And we'll be back with you sometime in the future, very future, before the next meeting, okay?
Yeah, this gentleman's been waiting.
Just one last comment. I'm sorry to be kind of the opposite of everybody else saying this, but by the way, my name is Paul Schneider, he, him. Sorry, I forgot to mention my name last time. I think a financially successful organization has a balance of debt and how they leverage it. And I think Carl's trying to get to that point, but I don't know, I'm not a financial person. I don't do this. All I know is that the balance of debt versus the income is really what we need to look at. It's solving this problem by paying off the mortgage may not truly solve our problem. Our problem isn't our debt. Our problem is our income. And I think making a short-term decision to pay off a mortgage may not be the right decision. It's, again, I'm sorry to be that side of the coin here, but we need to look at this at a holistic standpoint. How does the organization survive? And in my mind, the biggest problem is our income.
All right, well, there's lots to digest, and we still have 2 topics to go. So let's hope that there's less discussion. Can we get the next slide? All right, and as best you can, be brief.
I think I took 3 slides out yesterday, so I think we're good. It might take me as long to get to the podium as it does to say the stuff. Okay, so because I'm one of the chairs of the assessment committee, I told Reverend Sarah when we did the small groups that I would take the data and would condense it down into something that would give us some ideas. I'm going to ask for the next slide, and I can see it from here, so I'm going to read it briefly. Know that this was the hardest data, whatever, I've ever done in my entire life. I'm 72, I'll be 73, and I have a PhD. And I did a qualitative dissertation with crayons and newsprint on my wall. So if I'm willing to say that, let's just know that we did the data from both notes and transcriptions, and one of the transcriptions had a bunch of ASCII characters in it I had to take out first. So, and we had a set of questions. Not every group answered all the questions. The groups invented some of their own, and it was really interesting. What I did was I collected all of the group notes, and there were 9 groups, and I put them in the Google form, and I picked up the database from the Google form. Each question of I think there were actually 5, but only 4 had data in them that made any sense. So the 4 questions, and these images and written data are directly from the Claude analysis. There's one mistake. There's a place where it says $56,000 a year to pay off the year's mortgage. It should be 51, according to David Shea. And since he's the finance guru, I relent. So that, and I'll show you where that is. We had approximately 50 participants. Not each group notes had the roles on them, so I don't know in all cases who went to a group and who didn't. The leaders were Chris Sarr and Megan Kimball, Janice Miller and Roz Hawkins, Mark Foote, Katie Hurstwicker, Deanne McClenahan, Amanda Schneider, Carl Anderson, and Joel Sanis. Thank you very much to all of you. I'm not complaining. It was just interesting. As a tabulator, because I wanted to keep as much objectivity as I can, because I've got some opinions that I didn't want to get in anybody else's way, I chose not to participate in a group. Jody Freeman and David Shea, yesterday, believe it or not, did the read on my data and my slides, and we came to the agreement that what I'm about to show you is the best we could from the data we had. Next slide. This is what's most important to people at VUU. And these were, please don't pay any attention to the numbers at the bottom, because the funny part about this is when you have a transcript and you have a set of notes, the numbers come out funny because in the transcript you might refer to something 6 times, and in the notes it gets referred to once. So just know that these are important at VUU. Open religious exploration, diversity and inclusivity, social justice and community impact, adequate staffing and resources, balance between inward and outward focus, strong faith formation program,
spiritual fulfillment at Sunday services, and community and relationships. I will say that by the time you get to the bottom of the chart, the things at the bottom were more important to some than the things at the top. But the numbers I would ignore. Next slide. These were the feelings. In other words, what do people love about VUU? Trust and care, openness to new ideas, social connections and activities, music program, youth and faith formation programs, spiritual growth and exploration, and being a welcoming community. Again, same caveat. Those are the things in general that are important to us. Next slide. Okay, so this is a survey, or this is a summary in text of the priorities that the groups variously came up with, and there was a chart for this, and it looked like junk. So I'm just going to read them to you. The essential program priorities were faith formation, Sunday services, and community outreach. The top revenue strategies that people talked about that are some ideas we haven't talked about, at least today. Targeted donations, allowing members to fund specific programs they care about. Improving the pledge campaign, we've talked about that a lot. I do want to say one thing. I heard some feedback that the people who are lesser financially able in the congregation sometimes feel excluded or sometimes feel like we should have a hardship category, so we'll quit asking them for more money they haven't got. That's a consideration. And then there was, again, and from the survey, there was this too. They want to return to some of the fun things. And we haven't done that since COVID, so maybe that's something we need to look at. And the top operational strategies that came out of the group work was increasing volunteers. And that's important. But those of us in the room are most of the people doing the volunteering. And I think before we rely on that really heavily, the group data doesn't say this, but it's something we need to consider. How many of us are volunteered out? Meaning doing so much that there's not room for anything else. I think that's just a decent question to ask ourselves. And if I have one thing to add to this, because I didn't participate in a group, that would be it. Have open committees. Make sure that people who want to be on a committee can. And the environmental action be focused on the environmental justice and perhaps solar panels. I saw some comments in the more detailed narrative from the groups that, maybe the solar panels financial efficiency, that's not the right word. Somebody who does finance better than I do can come up with the right word. May need to be reevaluated again, but let's move. So that's what's on top in terms of priorities. Let's look at what's on top. The next slide. These are funding options, how to do things. What could we do? We've talked a lot about paying off the mortgage, strengthening the pledge campaign, endowing staff positions. Here's one we haven't talked about much, and I'm close to the age where this is relevant, and it's important that we talk about it. Qualified charitable distributions for those of us who have whatever IRAs and stuff like that, where you're required to take money out each year and some people have to figure out what to do with it. We should talk to people about those. And then create a sustainable volunteer structure. Somebody suggested we have a volunteer coordinator, and I don't have any objection to that idea. I don't know how we would do it, but that's not my job at this point. And then establish resource sharing partnerships, possibility of sharing staff positions with other congregations. I did think of one difficulty with that. Say if we had a congregational arrangement with someone and we got 10 hours of somebody's time, and the other congregation got 10 hours of somebody's time, and they were in the UUA pension system, somebody would have to pay their pension. So there are more, because right at about 20 hours a week, the pension becomes an important part. So there are more considerations than just going over to UUCP and saying, can we share an XYZ? And that made me think about that. And then the targeted fundraising was the other thing, and we already talked about that a minute ago. Next slide. Right now, if we do the faith formation reduction, it would be to move to 3/4 time. And David, check me, I think you checked these yesterday. If we moved from half-time to 3/4 time, it would take another $25K. And if we moved from 3/4 time, or from half-time to full-time, it would take another $50K in the budget. And if that's not quite right, I'll stand on getting the right answer to that question later. What? Close enough, okay. David says close enough. And to have a full-time music director, including having to restore to the budget what Special Funds is doing this year, 75K would restore to full-time. Does that mean that also takes care of what Special Funds is paying now, or would it be more than that? Okay, so if the budget had to take the payment for the music director and make a 3/4 position, it would be a $75,000 hit on the budget. Next slide. Now, the one thing I've discovered about AI, and Claude is an AI tool, it's a good language analysis tool. The thing is, they got a big bunch of servers somewhere, and they collect up a whole bunch of data. So there comes a point, if you ask them the right kind of questions about your church and somebody else has asked the same question about that church, you get Claude's idea. So I'm willing to say, because of what I did, that this is the slide where the error is on the first line. But I'm also willing to say that this is mostly, perhaps not all, Claude's idea. Paying off the mortgage, strong congregational support for maintaining faith formation, pledge campaign improvements, resource sharing with UU congregations, and the targeted promotion of the qualified charitable distributions. These are repetitive, but they're the things that more than one group talked about. Next slide. Okay, this is complicated, and the fact of the matter is we've talked about it enough. I'm going to skip it because of time, and if anybody wants to see it, that's fine. I'm not hiding it. Next slide. Same thing. Oh, let's do this one. There was conversation in more than one group about the purpose of the endowment and how the endowment's used. And this slide is descriptions of the purpose. And some of them were negative, and the one that was the most negative was using it for operating expenses. Capital one-time expenses, emergency use, strategic investments, and transition funding were supported. And like, there are complexities on that slide, and I'll show it to anybody, but not right now. And next slide. This is how the endowment could get used and is getting used. And it's a weird slide. I couldn't separate the slanted line from the straight line. So know that the reds are the negative, and the grays are the neutral, and the greens are the positive. And there were ideas paying off the mortgage, staff operating expenses, one-time improvements, and transition funding. And the one that got the most support was related to the mortgage. The one that got the least support was the staff paying, and the ones that were more neutral one-time improvements was better than transition funding, but we have transition funding needs on a fairly regular basis, so that was kind of equalized. Next slide. Okay, this slide is the most fun. And this is where I think Claude knows things we don't. And it's the one place that I thought maybe Claude could be helpful. And what it did was, I asked it a question, and what it did was it came back and said, if we did X, this would be the strength of the impact, and this would be the complexity of doing whatever the X was. So paying off the mortgage, strengthening the pledge campaign, and endowing staff positions would have high impacts and medium ease in doing. Promote the QCD options and reduce maintenance costs would have medium impacts and high ease of doing. Optimize facility use, both the impact and the ease of doing it were considered to be medium, and one of the groups knows something I didn't know about Fry's, and apparently you can designate your organization as a charity in your Fry's card, and people should do that if you don't know that. I didn't know that. And the impact might be low, but the ease was high. That's all I got. Anybody got any questions I can't answer? Linda.
I'll be there.
Really, really great data. I assume you will put a link in the happening sometime so we can look at it at our leisure.
I hope so. I haven't gotten that far because I finished the slides yesterday and I started on Wednesday. So I haven't thought ahead, but as long as everybody agrees, I'll get them in the slides this next week.
This is Tom. Could you give me a quick acronym check? What's a QCD?
Surely. Qualified Charitable Donation. Distribution. Ends up being a donation. Deanne, do you want to say something about that? You're much more knowledgeable than I.
I'll just say what it is. Qualified charitable distribution is something you have to take from any qualified accounts like IRAs after you turn a certain age, which for me would be 73 and a half. For some of you, it would be younger or older. And when you take that money, if you direct it immediately to a charity from the IRA, it is fully tax deductible in that it's not taxable. So instead of, you have to take it out, and when you take it out, you pay tax on it. If you send it right to VUU, you are not paying tax on it.
So instead of taking it out and then donating it to VUU, send it directly and you don't have to pay taxes on it.
And it also avoids the itemized versus non-itemized. So if you're not itemizing, it doesn't matter. It still saves the taxes on it regardless.
You have a question back here, Tom?
Related to that in personal disclosure. So I just retired in September. I got a nice little chunk of money, and I was really worried about the tax on that. So I have an account with Fidelity, and they have, I forgot what it's called, but it's essentially a charitable fund, something CF, charitable fund. And so I was able to put a good chunk of the money in that, which I have to donate, but it allowed me to avoid paying the taxes on it, which sounds similar to this, but can that be something where you can queue it up and then distribute it as you see fit?
Anybody else have anything they want to offer for the good of the order? This is my last slide. Do you have more, Mark?
Thank you.
We have another topic. What's the next topic? Leadership Development Committee. Leadership Development Committee. Roz is not here. Is somebody going to
Joel's going to say something, but as he's walking up there, I'll just kind of tie a bow on this.
All right,
I set up these small group conversations in March when we were realizing in our sustainable budget conversations that we had some bigger problems that we thought 5 or 6 people or a board of people should be solving alone. We really wanted to draw all of you into this conversation about what are the resources we have, how can we spend them best, how can we do that in ways that keep us sustainable as a congregation, not just our budget, but our programs, as you so clearly said about, how do we make sure we're sustaining faith formation and, sustaining VIP and the other things that we care about. I didn't feel like I'm chief of staff. I turn in a budget to the folks who then give you something to vote on. And I make a lot of decisions about staffing and that and about where we're spending money. I did not feel comfortable this year any more than I did last year making some of those decisions without all of you and your creativity and your values and your perspectives being part of that conversation. I wish we'd had more than 50. I know that it's hard to work those small group conversations in. Just know we have a whole month before we vote, and you should keep talking to each other about the creative solutions for how we can address this. I'm working on daily. Todd and I are figuring out ways to rent this space out. I meet with people all the time who want to use it, and I have to weigh out, is their use of it going to interfere with our use of it? And that includes the wear and tear on the actual infrastructure that we use. Do the dollars we're bringing in, outweigh the wear and tear on the property? So there's a lot of things that go into that, and frankly, we're understaffed already. So I just want you to know that I'm pretty creative, and I will find a way to make all these things work, but I need all of you to be part of that conversation. And if it means we don't have more money to give, but we've got to figure out how to make better use of how we do things, like we've got to do them differently, then we can have that conversation. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't in that conversation by myself or with the 5 people on the sustainability committee or whatever. The board needs all of you to be engaged in helping us figure out how we solve this. We have about 70 fewer members coming regularly than you had pre-pandemic. And that's a chunk of money. That's why that money's not there. It's not because you guys aren't giving enough. It's because we just don't have as many members. And that's okay. We'll get more members. We do all the time. But in the interim, we've got to figure out how to make this work with whatever we can put together. So I just want to say thank you to the people who stepped up and said, yes, I'll lead a conversation, and took the time out of their month to do that, maybe once or twice, and to each of you who agreed to participate in them. Because to me, this large group conversation is helpful, but it would be worse if some of you hadn't already been in a small group conversation, right? The anxiety and the knowledge are different when we've had those small group conversations. So I hope we will continue to use that as a technique every year when we're preparing for this larger group conversation. I'm not in charge of this now. I think we're moving on, but is it quick? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Tisha Hensley Brown, she, her. I'm just wondering, hearing what you said with the community conversation, when I looked around the room, I found out about this reading the newsletter, and that's why I'm here. My family and I have been friends of VUU for the last 8 years. We have contributed on some of those years, but when I hear about the faith formation losing that resource, that's the big draw for my family. And like OWL program is what keeps us coming back. And when I'm looking around the room and I am making some assumptions, but some faces are familiar, some are not. The faces that are familiar to me are the parents whose kids are here today in a coming of age program feeding us lunch. And I'm hearing about the impacts to the faith formation program, and I'm wondering where the other families are. I don't know if they know that these cuts potentially are coming to the faith formation. I'm just wondering, what else can we do to communicate with those families? I know not everyone, especially when you're raising kids, are in a financial position to give a whole lot. I didn't know about Fry's contributions. I do that for my kids' booster program for orchestra or for swim team. But if I know now that I could do that here, that might be a way that other families who are struggling are trying to, that's one way they could contribute. So I guess my question is, what can we do to let those families know that if it's possible, they're aware that we could lose the faith formation down to halftime, if they can start thinking about what they can do to contribute, either with pledging or with contributing towards something like the Fry's program in the meantime. Because I don't see a lot of the faces I recognize as being the families that are going to be most impacted by that.
Sorry, we are bringing it back to you, Joel, I swear.
Hi, I'm Sarah Sauter, she, her. I just wanted to respond to some of the comments made about reducing the faith formation program. I have worked at half-time, I have worked at three-quarter time, I have worked at full-time, and I've done this for 30 years. It will make a significant difference in your program if you reduce to half-time. Because the things that you're seeing change this year are not just what's occurring in the classroom, it's what's occurring in the sanctuary. From kids feeling welcome, the recognizing faces every week that they see, the fidget toys, the young person, the infant toddler area, all of that stuff is outside of the classroom. Also, Reverend Sarah and I spend a fair amount of time working on the the all community worship services, which I think are very important. So I have right here $1,000. $1,000 every time we serve soup here. We've done it from January through May, once a month. So there's an opportunity.
Okay, so we have lots more to talk about, and maybe some people to talk to that aren't in the room. So part of that is how you leverage the people you do know to let them know what happened in the room when they couldn't be there. Back to you, Joel.
Thanks, Sarah. So for those of you who might be here for the first of this type of meeting, I say this one occasionally, is keep in mind that we are registered with the Arizona Corporation Commission as a nonprofit corporation, and we have been for 60 years. We are a well-run organization. Every year we file an annual report with the Arizona Corporation Commission. When our leadership changes, we let the Corporation Commission know that our leadership has changed. We need, as a matter of our bylaws, we need leadership. We need leadership just to tell the Arizona Corporation Commission who our leadership is, but we also need leadership to address challenges like this. For those of you who may be here for the first time or the second time, I'll say that in my 20-plus years that I've been here, this is not an unusual conversation. We've faced these challenges before, and as Beverly said, we've met these challenges before. The way to meet these challenges is through your leadership. And so this year, for elections, we have 3 openings with the Leadership Development Committee. We have, on the slide it says that there are 4 Board of Trustee positions open for election. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have, from what I see, from what Leadership Development Committee has, we have 3 leadership development positions open. We have 3 positions for the Board of Trustees, and if I believe, is that right? 3? That's what I've got in my information. And one of the reasons we have a leadership Board of Trustees position open is because Tom Briggs, is Tom still here? Hi, Tom. Tom is termed out. He's served his terms, all the terms he has on the board. He's given a lot of time and effort. We'll have a formal recognition for Tom in June. But Tom, thank you so much for all your leadership. So if any of you are interested in running, we also have 1 opening on Special Funds Committee. Thanks, Carl. We have 1 opening on Special Funds Committee. Those are our elected leadership positions. And B, you're right. The question was 1 year before you can take on one of those leadership positions. All of those 3, I did put on my calendar. I'll be contacting you next year. All right. So we've started recruitment for those who we reach out through Leadership Development Committee to ask people if they would run for one of those offices. But please don't wait for us to reach out to you. If you want to run for a leadership position, on any of these positions, all that you have to do is contact me, joelsanis@gmail.com, easy to remember. Roz Hawkins is our chair. She had a family matter that she had to attend to today, but you can contact Roz. Dan Schulte, who is here, is also on Leadership Development Committee. So contact any of us. If any of you think that you can make an impact, these positions, they can be time-consuming. They can put you in a position where you're taking on worries that you wouldn't have to take on if you didn't volunteer, but it's also very rewarding to run for any of these positions. So if any of you have any interest, or if you know anybody who does, who might not be here today, or if you have any recommendations, please reach out to me or to Dan or to Roz so that we can fill these, so we can have candidates for all of these positions at our June meeting. I think that's all I had. I'm going to keep it short. But if there are any questions or comments, that's it. Thank you.
All right, I think next slide. That's it. So thank you so much for coming. And I appreciate, well, there's one more slide. I think it says thank you for coming, something like that. There we go. Yay. Long meeting. Appreciate all your support. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.